Hey everybody, welcome back to a brand new week. So happy you could join me here today for our Mindset and Motivation Monday chat, one of my favorite shows of the week. And the reason that it is because no matter what your dreams, no matter what you feel your potential is, it all starts with the mind. And that is because the stories that you share with yourself every moment of the day that happen between these two ears are ultimately what dictates your future. Now, I want to break that down a little bit for you because we all have stories that we've even been given or we've created for ourselves over our childhood years and then adult years as well. These stories have allowed us to get to where we are. They've allowed us to have the success that we have, but they also cause the limitations that we have in our life. So if you feel like you've plateaued in your life, it's most likely because of the story that you continue to believe about you. Now, here's the interesting thing. You're the one who's telling the story, right? You're the one who made up the story. Even if it's partially based in reality, you are the one who continues to read the same story every single day of your life. Now, again, there'll always be pushback on these types of thoughts and philosophies. I understand it. I get it. I'm based in reality as well. There's no doubt about it. I'm as big a skeptic as you could find. I've been that way for a long time, and the reason is that I didn't get well in a year. I didn't get well in 2 years. It took me over 2 years, over 24 months, just to get a diagnosis for what was going on with my body. And then another 7.5 years to heal because I didn't have the right protocols at the right time, right? That was it. So I get it. I understand the skepticism, but do not allow that to hold you back because ultimately there was an answer. It just took me too long to figure it out. And most of it, be honest with you, was me not being able to find the right mentor, the right coach, the right person to put it all together, but also was the story I continued to tell myself. I continued to tell myself that this is just the way that I am, that in my family, everybody gets autoimmune diseases. All 4 of my grandparents had autoimmune diseases. Both my parents had autoimmune diseases. Why wouldn't I have an autoimmune disease? I just got it earlier in life, right? There was all sorts of health-based issues with people that I knew. Why wouldn't I just get Addison's disease then, or type 2 diabetes, or any of these things? Why wouldn't I have all these inflammatory issues and allergies and all sorts of insomnia and anxiety, et cetera? Well, of course I'm going to, right? That's just part of who I am. That was my story. I continued to get those same results. Sometimes, contrary to my story, because I was trying so hard, that's the thing, you can try so hard in life, I would actually get well. I would actually get the results I was looking for. But then guess what? I would relapse. I would relapse every few months because I simply returned to who I believed I was. And for so many of us, we begin to get into the right relationship. We find the right job. We begin to improve our health. We begin to improve our body or our spirituality. But ultimately, every couple weeks or months, we slide back into who we are. Now, we are that way because of it is the way that we say we are that way. So if we have to begin to unwind this story, it does help to know why we believe the way that we are. Now, some of it, there's no doubt about it, is what we grew up around when we were young. Remember, when we are young, especially before the age of 8, and the problem is you don't remember too much before the age of 8, but that is when your mind is essentially in this theta-based state. It is absorbing words, yes, but what we see. So a lot of times our parents will tell us one thing, but if we don't see that reflected in reality through our eyes, not an adult's eyes, but a child's eyes, then we don't absorb that to be fact of the words, but rather what we see or experience. So if we see sickness, if we see despair, if we see security issues around finances or worry about finances or career or relationships or health or whatever it might be, we begin to make that a part of us. It's what we see, and the reason is we learn these things really quick because your mind cannot possibly learn everything it needs to. So it absorbs it into the subconscious mind. The subconscious then shares with you all sorts of different signals, mainly through stress or anxiety or worry or fear, to stay away from those things. But it's also what we also understand to be our comfort zone. Or even though it's not comfortable, our comfort zone becomes one of sickness or poor health or weight gain or disruptive relationships or poor finances, whatever it might be in your life. And it becomes that way. It's because it's what you've known from either your community, your family, what you started to absorb yourself, maybe part of your friends group. It doesn't have to be from one specific person, but it often is what happens earlier in life. Now, I share this with you because it's not always easy to unwind. You absolutely can, through all sorts of things like internal family systems therapy, through neurolinguistic programming, through specific type of regressive-based therapy with hypnotherapy. Listen, I've seen it work many, many times. I know that it does. But there's something else you can do. It's simply to say and understand this, is that when you were a child or when you were younger, you didn't have the same frame of reference you do as an adult. You were looking at things through a child's eyes. It is possible that you would have seen things differently had you gone back and looked at it through an adult's eyes. Oftentimes, you can start to realize this a bit as a parent. You can start to say, oh, yeah, I could see how a child takes it differently when they're in their own reality rather than as an adult, how they're trying to explain it or reprimand a child or whatever it might be. Now, I'm also not discounting that many people have had trauma in their past. I don't deny that at all. There's no doubt about that. That is real, very real. The problem is this, that trauma then becomes, again, a part of who you are. And you might say, well, sure, yes, it's always who I will be because of that. And I would just invite you just to explore if that has to be true for you. Because it's my opinion that it does not have to be the overarching theme in your life. Nothing does, unless you decide to continue to retell that story in the same way. Maybe you are someone that is up against a challenge, up against a past challenge or obstacle, but maybe you are the hero of your own story. Maybe you are someone that's going to be able to overcome this. And maybe it will not be just for the benefit of you, but the benefit of thousands, tens of thousands, or millions of other people. Maybe after you overcome this, you'll be able to share your story with the world. And you'll be able to do that whether you overcame a health issue like I did, right? All sorts of autoimmune, idiopathic-based illnesses, right? No energy, chronic fatigue syndrome, Addison's disease, POTS, mast cell activation syndrome, you name it, right? I had all of these things. I don't anymore. I took 10 years of pain and suffering and now made it my mission. Understanding that if I could overcome this with my genetics, with my belief system, and I could rewire my body and my mind, well, there's no doubt that you can as well. I just don't have any special genetics that would lend me to even healing in the first place. All of my genetics say poor detox, lots of inflammation, right? Like those are my genes. But yet I don't have any of those diseases that I used to. How did I overcome them? One part, natural health and healing, no doubt about that. Things like the CBO protocol to heal my gut, right? Things like the daily foundational protocol for the nutrients that my body needed, right? I could go on and on. But a lot of it, and another big part of it, was also mindset. Because if I was not willing to let go of my previous stories and stop being a person who suffers from Addison's, who suffers from rheumatoid arthritis, who suffers from mastocytosis, who suffers from POTS or insomnia or any of these things. If I allowed myself to continue to be a victim of that, who wins? I don't win. I automatically lose. All of those diseases in conventional medicine, they win. They get me to take all their pharmaceuticals. They get me to believe that there's no hope. They get me to believe that there's no answer. When there was. I had to first believe in me. I had to believe in me that I was even willing to then go see the next practitioner, to begin the next protocol, when there wasn't a lot of hope. I had to start to change the story that if someone else could achieve this in life, why not me? That's how I started to look at it. Like, I met people and they had got well. I read lots of stories, right? Lots of self-improvement and heart-lifting stories. And I read them and I'm like, this person doesn't seem like they have any special skills. Well, then why can't I? And I kept just using the framework, well, why not me, right? First it was why me? Like, why do these things happen? Well, that's just the way that I am. That's just the way that my family works. That's just the way that's who we are, right? We all hear these things. Or I am this way because this happened or that happened. And I get it. And the truth is probably a lot of them are valid. Maybe all of them. But it's still not serving you. That's the problem. And so if you are blocked and you are not reaching your potential in life, it is because most likely that there's a story, that there's a limitation in your subconscious that says that's the way that you are. You've tried it before in the past. It hasn't worked. What makes you think this time will be different? Don't waste your time. Don't waste your energy. Don't waste your money. You're just going to end up frustrated. If you said that to yourself before, it is a story. The story begins and needs to change. You need to rewrite your own story. How do you do this? You first start with even being aware that we tell ourselves stories of who we are and what we can do in life and the happiness that we deserve to have every single day. Those stories are just being replayed every day in our subconscious. You need to be aware of your sticking points. You might be great with body transformation. You might be great with your health. Not so good in relationships, right? Great maybe in finances, but not so good in spirituality or family, like whatever it might be. You have to understand is that you need to look at where your stumbling blocks are. Then you need to decide, is this a priority? Some people, it's just not a priority. Like relationships aren't a priority. Finances aren't a priority. Health's not a priority. Like we know those people. But you need to ask you. That's the only thing that matters. Ask yourself, what matters to you? Then start to ask yourself the questions. Why don't I have the optimal health? Why don't I have my optimal body? Why don't I have my optimal relationship, career, etc.? Then listen. What does your subconscious say back to you? Well, it's because you don't deserve it. Well, nobody in your family made that much money. Well, everybody in your family has autoimmune diseases, right? That's in your genetics. Listen to what is being said back to you. That is the start of your story. Don't fight with it. That's futile, right? Fighting with yourself is futile. It only leads to more stress. What you need to do is recognize self-awareness, listen to the voice. Allow it to be heard. Write down, journal what it is saying, okay? Don't fight against it. Then begin to simply question, however, is there another way? Has anyone in my position ever accomplished what I'm looking for? If so, how would I go about that? Just suspend disbelief for a moment. You don't have to figure it out yet. You're just suspending disbelief. Okay, so this person was able to do it. This is how they were able to do it. How are they today? They're still well today. They're still in a great relationship today. That's impressive. What would it take for me to maybe not do the whole thing, but just take the first step? So what I'm doing right now by asking these self-improvement based questions is I'm getting my subconscious mind to simply begin to question the narrative, the story that's already been written. And I'm doing it in a non-confrontational manner. Because remember, you're just going to dig your heels in deeper, right? You're just going to say, no, you're just going to keep coming up with reasons why it won't work, right? So what I need you to do is this. Just ask the right questions. Just say, well, what if it was possible? What would it look like? I know it's probably not possible, but what would it look like? How would I go about it? Who would I need to learn from? What would I need to do? What action steps would I need to take? How long do we think that would take? Would someone like me be willing to go through with this? If you begin to ask those questions, you begin to break down the cement that these novels, that these stories are basically locked into and built in your subconscious mind. And you just start to wear them away because you're being gentle about it. You're asking the right questions. And then your subconscious is like, well, yeah, maybe this isn't as bad as it seems. Maybe we could give this a shot. And you begin just to take the smallest of steps, not to overwhelm yourself. Or you begin to work with a coach of any type, relationship, psychology-based, health-based, whatever it is. And what you're doing is you're not then necessarily having to always believe in yourself, but you believe in your coach. They've been there before. They've worked with clients like you. They've seen the other side. You're trusting them as a guide, a Sherpa, right, up the mountain. They're the ones who've already done it. They know how you're going to get there safely. And your job is to simply say, okay, look, what's the next step? I don't need to know the whole path. What's the next step? And you begin to trust. You begin to implement, and you begin to take some of their confidence. Then very slowly, and so as not to overwhelm the stories that are there, you begin to rewrite the stories. And you do that by small accomplishments. Those small accomplishments show you that there may be another way, and that you begin to write the next chapter. The next chapter after that is another win. You celebrate those small wins. You don't go to overwhelmed. You don't get super excited. You say, well, I might be on my way. And you simply begin to do the work that is needed in order to change the stories between these two errors. I'm telling you right now, beginning to change the story is the first step to changing your life. That is what I want for you. I want you to reach your highest potential, your highest good for this world. I know you have more in you, and I have no doubt that you can do this. So hopefully this was helpful. As always, if it was, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve.